afternoon. You're listening to the Fourth Estate on Radio Brunel, Brunel's University student-run station. If you're just joining us on the Radio Brunel, you might have not heard about the Fourth Estate. So here's a little bit of an introduction to it. This is the show that talks about the news and issues of the week, and we discuss everything from tabloid entertainment to finance to the European Union to anything happening across the pond in the States, Asian news, and basically anything that really caught our eye and caught the major headlines of the week. So Monday's show talks about news that happened over the weekend. So we're talking about front page headlines from papers like The Guardian, the Telegraph, the Daily Mail, and the Mirror, and see what they reported on Saturday and Sunday's papers. Today I am joined by two wonderful guests. We've got Amita Joshi and Grace Witherden. Want to give a different introduction to today?
I don't know what you mean by different, but my name's Amita Joshi. I'm sure you might have heard me on here before already, and I'm an MA journalism student.
And I'm exactly the same, but my headphones are...
No worries.
I'm Grace. My headphones are just very uncomfortable at the minute. There we go. I've sorted that out.
So now we've got Amita and Grace. So starting off with Saturday's headlines, you've got The Guardian with the headline that says Merkel forces Cameron retreat. Merkel being Angela Merkel, from the German Chancellor. And so she says she has warned David Cameron that she will not tolerate Cameron's plans to cap number of EU migrants entering Britain, as it takes away the principle of free movement for workers. This measure is going to be an emergency brake on movement to Britain after figures have almost doubled in the last year. So yeah, I mean, Germany has a huge power over the European Union, and she's quite powerful, Angela Merkel. What do you make of her comments?
Unusual, because it's not unheard of that they have migration issues themselves. So it's quite interesting that she's taken quite a strong stance on this. I do think it's slightly harsh, because she's criticizing what he's saying, and I don't necessarily agree with it.
Grace, anything you want to add?
So obviously, this seems to come up every week. There's a different quote or a different story or a different MP putting in their stance about immigration. And obviously this week it's no different. Someone else has just basically chipped into the fire. And either we're in the EU or we're not. But if we're in, we need to accept that free movement is a thing. We can't really moan about it. We have free movement. That's that.
I mean, it's a tricky situation because we do have free movement, and I completely agree with it. And his harsh emergency brake idea to cap people coming here is, it is very, very controversial. But what happens if everybody wants to come here? There is that interesting point as well. So I don't know my own personal stance on it. I'm not sure. But I do think that it's...
And if we started having
issue.
a cap, maybe the countries that we all go to visit would think, okay, maybe we're going to have a cap on the Britons that enter our country. And it
could just lead to a huge spiral of,
it could
a
just
domino
lead
effect.
to everyone thinking out for themselves and what they want to get out of the EU and not being this union.
Yeah, it doesn't seem very together at the moment. I mean, the only thing that I can think of where it does feel together is all of the other leaders saying no, they don't agree with it. So on that front, I think we're absolutely outnumbered.
I feel like David Cameron is under immense pressure from the country and other MPs, more strongly from UKIP, to put forward these policies or suggested policies on immigration and free movement, just so that obviously the election is coming up in March. Everyone has got this on their minds, and he knows he needs to act now to get the country behind him. So he's talking the talk, but when it comes down to it, I don't think he's going to walk the walk.
Especially now that he's sort of changed his plan a bit to just having a cap on migrations to now just reducing benefits available in the country. So he will deprive EU migrants in work from accessing social housing for 4 years, and will not allow unemployed migrants to stay for more than 6 weeks. I mean, for me, I think it's quite reasonable, I think, for people who are unemployed migrants to stay longer than 6 weeks, because
it takes time to find a job. I guess.
Exactly, but
Especially if maybe their English isn't amazing
yeah,
and they have to find a place to live. These things can take time. So I don't know if 6 weeks is quite long enough.
Yeah, it's quite a harsh. It's quite a harsh statement to make, and I do think that he's saying, and he said in his speech that it's doable, and what is more, it will work. But I'm not sure it will work. I think instead of deterring people, it will put others in complete turmoil. So I'm not exactly sure whether this is the best way forward.
yeah. I haven't seen any like sort of policy on immigration that has actually worked yet. I mean, the U.S. is still trying each policy each year, the U.K. too. I haven't seen anything that actually works so far, and I don't see why we're going to be any different. You know.
No, I completely agree. I don't think anybody's cracked the problem, but I do think that...
But is it a problem that needs to be cracked? Is it something that needs to be conquered, or should we just be accepting it and trying to work with what we've got? Or is it, people say immigration is a problem. Well, is it a problem?
That's a good question in itself. I mean, I'm obviously very influenced by the media because I'm calling it a problem already, which is not great. But no, you're absolutely right. Should it be that we are, through the media, viewing it in a completely negative light? Actually, it's that workers are coming here and helping us do the jobs that we might necessarily not want to take up, which would be benefiting us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for a day where it's not an issue of people coming into a country, but people leaving to a country. I think that'd be quite interesting to see people flying off to, I don't know, Sweden, Poland, to actually live there. And, you never know. Hopefully that will be the time in the future. So, the front page on The Independent says, Cameron forced to retreat on migration. And there's a lot of strong words for both The Independent and The Guardian, both using the word force, as if like he didn't do it based on his own will. It's like, who is bending Cameron to do all this kind of stuff? I mean, yes, he has all these pressures from the government, from UKIP, from the people of the nation, but it's also like force. Like it's a very heavily emotional word.
I think there's a lot of pressure, mainly from the public, because he knows if he doesn't do anything about it, people will go to UKIP and look for the answers from them.
I think the other force comes from the EU, because he has openly said many times that he sees the EU as a good thing, and being a part of the EU is wonderful. But he's now sort of changing his mind and saying, actually, I may well say, no, I want to leave, if my issues don't get met. So it is a heavy word, but I do think he is being forced in all sorts of directions, which is
and I think a lot of people do want the best of both worlds, because they don't want this immigration, but they're the first. If we have a problem and it doesn't go in our favour, it's these people that are the first to jump to the European Court of Rights and say, okay, can you overpill the UK, please? So they want that benefit, but they don't want the other aspects of being in the EU. They really do want the best of both worlds. They want the free movement when they can go to other countries, and businesses like the low import and export costs. But when it comes, there's certain aspects they don't want. They want to pick and choose what they want out of the EU, and I don't think it really works like that. I think we either have to commit or we have to step aside. But I don't feel like they're going to be very happy with us negotiating and coming in there and saying we want this and we want this. I think they're just going to be like, okay, then leave.
And I completely agree. I also think that they are so... I mean, he's so unstable about whether he wants to stay, whether he wants to go. It keeps changing all the time. And I think threatening the EU with us leaving may well result in them saying, okay, go. Because he's saying it so many times, it's starting to lose meaning. So...
Yeah, and he even says that in a paper on the Daily Express that has the title "Migrant Controls or We'll Quit EU." He believes that the EU treaty should be torn up and sort of restarted so that Britain can have the migrant control it needs. He has signalled that the UK will leave the EU if these aren't met. He has not ruled out recommending the British exit if other EU nations refuse to compromise on the principle of free movement and accept reforms that he said were radical but reasonable and fair. So I mean, the first thing that I was going to ask is like that whole torn up, otherwise, we'll leave. I mean, we did mention it a bit on the previous show about it's a bit childish sometimes to be if I don't get the way I want it, I'm leaving. but
Very much, and I think we need to ask ourselves: do we have a responsibility to stay in it?
yeah, well,
We're a
that's true,
very
actually.
influential country, and we're very much a bridge between Europe and America. And do we have a responsibility to stay in it, or should we just be thinking, nope, on your own, we can do stuff by ourselves? I don't know. Maybe we owe it to stay in, because there are some countries that need the support of the EU. We're an island. We don't have fear of being invaded by our neighbours. Some countries in Eastern Europe do, and they want to be part of the EU because it's more protection for them.
And then just from us as well, from the EU, because then we can come there and for their aid as well. But yeah, interesting. I mean, that's going to be a question that I think people in the May election will have to answer, and see what they want to have on the EU.
I don't think people are being well informed on it enough either. Nobody is looking at exactly how our lives will be affected on a daily basis if we stay in or leave. I think we always analyse the big businesses and the effects on the banks, but we don't look at the everyday person and what would happen on the decision.
A very small example is we have Coca-Cola headquarters in Uxbridge. That is their European base, and if we weren't part of the EU, maybe they would move. Maybe they would pick a location in Europe because it's a European base. And how many jobs then would that affect there? How would that affect the Uxbridge or the Hillingdon resident that works there? And this is just one example of how it would influence just the everyday person, because of maybe a business or a small business decides to leave the UK because we're not as favourable anymore because we're not in the EU.
I do think economically we're more linked to the US, and that's always been a struggle for this country in terms of being a part of the EU and the economy. But you're absolutely right. There is an element of responsibility there. They need to think about how it will affect the country, not just those who hold the money.
Exactly. And moving on to the next headline, which is the Daily Telegraph, with the headlines: Police checks for migrants. So the EU migrants from the European Union may have to be required to sign in at the police station as part of the reforms announced by David Cameron to limit the number of foreigners coming to Britain.
Intense.
Interestingly, though, I mean, that's the same thing applies to people coming in from Asia as well, because I remember my housemate had to go to the police and say, I am living in the UK, this is where I'm here now, this is my address and everything. So, I mean, is it really that controversial?
Perhaps the papers have made it more controversial than it actually is, but I do think that there is going to be an element there of slightly criminalising it.
Actually, yeah, exactly.
Even if that's not the case and you are going there seems to be something very
It is giving
demeaning.
them a way to keep tabs on migrants.
Absolutely. It's and I understand it might be one of the few ways they feel that they can regulate this, but I do think with the police being related to crime, that it does almost feel as if they're being put in the same category, which isn't a great implication, really.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it should sort of be like a separate body, like a separate institution, other than the police handling this kind of stuff?
Well, I can understand maybe they need to know numbers in the country.
Yeah.
And in the same way, on a smaller scale, of how if we have guests, we have to let the university know in case there's a fire. But imagine this on like a larger scale. They need to know like the numbers of people in the country, maybe more for health reasons or safety in the area, or perhaps how it's going to affect the council if they need. For example, recently in Hillingdon, they didn't account for extra immigrants having places in the local primary school. And obviously this wasn't counted into the budget, so they had to find these extra places for kids, which they didn't think was going to be a problem. So maybe it's more in a sense of so that they can plan and prepare a bit things like issues like this. But in the same way, if I was in a country and I had to report at the police station, I don't think I'd be very happy about it.
Exactly. It's how, on a human level, how it might make you feel. And interestingly, you raised really good points about how it might be for something else, because the questions that were asked by the Tories were how they'd be able to enforce deportations for out-of-work migrants, so nobody actually asked how you just keep a tab on things. It was immediately about, okay, how do we, address the issue of sending people back if they're not working? So there is already a negative element to it, which isn't great, in my opinion.
No, it's not exactly. And he has announced plans for emergency fund to help meet the additional demands on local services in communities that are struggling to cope with a large number of foreigners, which I think would also apply in Hillingdon as well. We're going to start with our first song, and before we come back with the Daily Mail, I'm talking about the Black Friday sales. You are listening to The Fourth Estate on Radio Brunel. Here you go.
Maybe I'll just find my way, I'll find it. Years ago now, I couldn't open my eyes to the stars burning by. So far away, I see now. And this is better in so many ways. All that glitter is fire.
You're listening to The Fourth Estate on Radio Brunel, the news show that talks about the top issues and news of the week, talking about Saturday and Sunday headlines. So starting back together with Amita and Grace, we've got the Daily Mail with headline, Shopping Madness. So it's about the Black Friday sales after they've caused violence and disorder, where bargain hunters accused of behaving like animals as they fought over discount goods, clothes and homeware. According to the Mail, police and ambulances were called to Tesco and Asda to deal with people who are engrossed in a tug-of-war over items such as TVs. At least 3 arrests have been made. 3 arrests, and they're saying violence and disorder. I mean, what is it?
It's the Daily Mail.
Yeah, true.
That's all I can say. I think the photographs say one thing. I've seen quite a lot of pictures of
And the videos
people
are
looking
horrible.
really quite
Yeah.
wild, and that is scary. But the arrests say another thing, which is 3 people, which in a whole country of shopping madness is not very many.
It's a very American thing, isn't it? I mean, it's very big over there, Black Friday.
Yeah.
And it gives families the chance who can't afford this stuff usually to go out and get their family something nice for Christmas. And I think that's why it is put on. And it's a really good thing in America, because you might have lower income families that this is the only chance in the year that they will be able to get some really good stuff for their kids or something. But I don't know if it's that big over here, or whether we've just sort of like jumped on the bandwagon on the commercial side of things, but things definitely looked like they were getting a bit out of hand in some of these shops. I mean, I definitely was thinking when I saw an image of 2 women fighting over a television. One was lying on top of the television in the shop. The other was pulling it from her, and there was cameras surrounding them. And I just thought to myself, like, come on, woman, get a grip. Like, your families and your kids are going to see this. And this is
Exactly.
not good behaviour.
So yeah,
For
you were
you to be
saying,
fighting over a Samsung HD, whatever, like.
and yeah, you were saying about families who are low income, want to get a nice thing for their kids and for their family. It's just like, yeah, I see your point, but also like, it's all about materials, it's all about goods. I mean, what about just having time with your family, having a good meal? Is there actually a Black Friday just for food? Because I would go crazy over that. If they
Yeah,
sold,
It's
I would-
Thanksgiving, so
oh,
it's the
wow,
day after
I would-
Thanksgiving, Black
But
Friday. Black
but
Friday.
if they were like selling, I don't know, a massive turkey just for £1, I would go. I would run and get it, because I think it's better than just buying a huge TV, even
Yeah,
though I would love a
absolutely.
TV.
Food takes all of my money, so if there was a Black Friday for food, I'd be right up there.
Yeah, but
Um,
I mean,
And I think it's a shame people were arrested and may have been injured in this, because it obviously it's gold for the papers like the Daily Mail, because come 10 o'clock they already had a few articles on the website, all with pictures showing how these women, mainly women, had got out of control about this, fighting over these goods, getting into some cat fights. And I just thought, like, oh dear.
I do think there is one interesting point which came out of this article, only one, and that's the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police said that there's a lot of issues as to whether police should be coming in to handle these issues. Should it be something that the security staff on duty in the stores should be addressing.
Like I dread to think if the police were needed elsewhere when this was going on, but they
Yeah.
had to be here to control these
to
crowds.
pull apart
But
women
then,
fighting over a TV.
yeah, but then again, maybe these women were really injured. Maybe they needed the police. So it's not for me to really say where the police are most needed. But it just shows how we just are so influenced by these things from America, like Black Friday. Now we're all crazy about it. There were websites. A few websites crashed at midnight on Thursday night. I know like Curry's was one of them, where people were like eagerly refreshing, waiting to see the bargains and stuff to get maybe £80 off a camera or something. But I think I had too much work to do, so I avoided online shopping that day
I'm
because I
always
knew
scared-
I would get knew I'd get whisked into it all.
I'm always a bit cautious about how much it's actually going to be on a discount, because I mean they could just say, oh, it's 10% off, or like, but it's actually meant to be.
I
Just
know
like
after
2%
Christmas
off.
they probably will have the similar discounts because
And
it'll be in the
real
sale.
sales, you know. But I mean, for now, it's just because it's Black Friday. It could be just marked down like just 2%, but it says, you know, half off. You know, they could lie about this kind of stuff, saying how much is really off, and that's the issue that I think people have. Because I mean, yes, you're saving some money, but ultimately you are still spending a lot of money on that same exact day. You're not really not saving a lot of money. It's still money being spent. That's the issue.
I always think that if I want something, and I mean really want something, I would pay the same price for it, whether it was off, there was money off it or not, because if I really wanted it, I would be prepared to pay for it.
There is always that danger that you see something online, and although you don't really need it, and if it was full priced you wouldn't have bought it, you do buy it because it's discounted, which could lead to a
And that
spiral of
horrible-
getting out of control.
Horrible moment when you buy something at full price and then the next day it goes on the sale.
It's true.
Yeah, that really sucks.
Knives
actually.
through my heart.
I also don't know how much to trust the discount, like you said, Jim, because it is a new and adopted idea here. So how do we know that they're marking it down? I mean, apparently the online sales were allowing up to 70% discounts, but
And
that's up to.
Amazon
so-
were selling they were having 64 sales a minute in Black Friday, and it was one of their biggest selling days on record.
But they still earn a profit, so where's the money coming from? Because if they're marking it down, where's all that money, you know, go to? Where's all the money come from? Because if you're selling it below the actual profit margin, how can they still earn a profit from what they sell? So that's like, yeah.
It must be something that's carefully planned throughout the year.
Yeah.
They must know how to handle it, and also
And stuff that they know won't sell from now until Christmas. And it would probably most likely be in the sales anyway. So they thought, well, let's just have a big push of these things now.
these items.
I was reading a thing online. Apparently, I think a CEO of one of the companies in the States, he actually marked it down accurately, as in when it's actually like 0.5% off, he'll put it actually 0.5% off. He got fired because they got a loss from those kind of sales. So yeah, it's a bit thing to think about. Our last headline, I think, for Saturday's news comes from The Sun. Do ho ho. Yeah, so it's a bit interesting.
Love those puns.
Do ho ho. So a couple on benefits says that they're spending £1,500 on Christmas at the taxpayer's expense. So Paul Andrew and Stacey Notley of Stockport, who were buying £200 of TVs for the two kids, are on
I
a
read the story on the
Yuletide
Daily Mail
welfare
this
bonus.
morning, actually, so
Yeah.
news travels
Yes.
with these papers.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those sad things where I think they are ruining it for people who actually need benefits, and I'm very aware of what the papers are doing, but at the same time, when I read it, it just made me feel incredibly
These stories are
sad.
sensationalised so much, and they really are made to produce that feeling of anger to everyone that reads it, and to every person that has had a very hard week at work and then comes home and maybe struggling to pay their rent, provide food for their families, and get their kids something really nice for Christmas, and then they read this, and then obviously I can feel they'd just be so angry and disheartened. But I think it's important that we remember what the newspaper is doing here, and these stories are made to make us feel angry. They're very manipulating the words they use, the pictures they use, and I guess maybe we don't know the full story with this family. We just hear the negatives, and maybe we don't hear other aspects of the family about why they need the benefits, maybe about how they've saved throughout the year, or to cut down on other things so they could afford this. It's just a shame because they're not balanced, and I know exactly what the papers are trying to make me feel, but I still fall into it and get angry.
At the same time, the Sun does say sometimes we genuinely find these cases. We do find these people who take what they can take. Because in this case, they haven't had a job for 5 years, neither of them. And Paul actually said, I can't actually look for a job
spend the
because
money
he
on
can't-
travel to
absolutely.
interviews, did he?
Which just, I mean, I'm lost for words. I think it's
But
awful.
someone did say this on Question Time this week, and a member of the public asked, why should I have to work when I know I can just get it on benefits? And I can't remember who it was, but she replied, because you have dignity. Because you have dignity, you have respect for yourself, and you know what, yeah, maybe you can get the same money on benefits, but she said, you know, you will work because you respect yourself. And I'm not saying anything against people that genuinely do need these benefits, but if it was a choice of working and earning the money, or knowing that I could work but still getting the benefits, I would rather work. But obviously I can't say anything about how much people need them. I don't know their circumstances, but if it was me and I was able to work, I would want to work for myself.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm actually intrigued because I mean, people like this, kind of individuals like this, I mean, I don't see why they would ever talk to the journalist, because
I
it
just
puts them
wondering
into a really
I was
bad
just wondering the same.
light. I mean,
And I thought they got paid, but our lecturer said that a lot of the time they don't get paid anymore. So I was just thinking, why would you?
exactly. Why would you say all this kind of stuff, but you know it's not really going to be a good light on yourself and
And
your
I
life?
also can't believe that the kids are getting tellies, because when I was 5 years old, I think I got like a Beanie Baby, and like there wasn't like I did
I
not
like
get a
Beanie
telly
Babies.
for Christmas.
Books. I got books every time.
Or some chocolate, and maybe like
Stationery.
a second-hand bike or something. I don't know, but there was no way I would get a telly. That, bear in mind, me and my sibling would each get a telly. Like that would not happen in a million years in my home. So maybe things have just moved on now, and kids can have their own tellies on their walls.
Kids are having
But
iPads and iPhones and everything
Yeah.
on their own. But I mean, yeah, bringing back to the original point, I mean, why would they ever agree to an interview like this? Because there has to be like at least half of the story is not being told on the Sun, I think. Because if they were willing to talk to journalists about this kind of stuff, has to be for a better reason, I think, than just saying I claim benefits.
I think that if you read further
maybe
down
they
the
were fooled into
story-
doing it. Maybe
Not necessarily, but I do think that there's some things that they said where they started talking about how it's the Christmas spirit and they'll do what they can to make their children happy. So I think that's what they were obviously focusing on. This is what we do for our children, and it's wonderful. And even though we don't have jobs, we will find the money, although they shouldn't use the word find because they're given $17,000 a year in handouts. But obviously, the Sun being the Sun, I mean, that Christmas spirit is not important. What's important is angering the readers. So
Yeah.
I think that's what may have happened
But
here.
I think I read that they only get $500 a month. And,
So,
I
yeah.
don't think that's a lot, really, if they have to pay their rent and their food. So I did honestly think that maybe they had saved very well throughout the year. Because in the article I read, it did say they got that much a month. And I was thinking, well, that's not really a lot. I mean,
It's not really
I
actually
pay
a lot in
around
there,
that
so-
for my rent for a tiny room on a campus, let alone a house with kids. So I was thinking maybe they don't get that much a week, and maybe they just do use the money they have very well in the year so they can splash out at Christmas. Maybe I don't know, but it didn't seem like they were getting that much. It just seemed that they wanted to spend some of the money they had saved maybe on the tellies for the kids.
Maybe
but-
you'd have to question their priorities as to whether they would rather save for Christmas than save for a taxi to an interview. But
Yeah.
it's,
Actually, indeed. So they claim about £148 in on income support every 2 weeks, £198 in child tax credit each fortnight, and each week they receive £38 in child benefits, £85 and 60p per week in housing benefits, and £20 and 55p per week to cover council tax. So it's not
And the
really
thing
a
with these
lot,
benefits
actually.
is they get them in a lump sum.
Oh, yeah.
So they're in charge of paying their own rent, paying their own food, paying their own tax, and that often does provide problems as well, because you will get these families that will maybe splash it all out. You know, some people money burns hole in their pockets; they have to spend it, My sister's one of them. So there are these
It's on
people.
record now. Your sister's money spender.
And it does make me think, maybe if the government paid the money straight to the landlord and the tax went straight out, it would prepare these types of people and teach them a bit more about how to spend money and how to save it and how to allocate for each thing, which they're not being taught in this system. Getting it in a lump sum, it's saying you can work out yourself where you're going to put, where you're going to delegate this money, but it might not necessarily teach them how they should be saving it or using it. It's very tempting when you get like we've all been paid at the end of the month and thought, I'm going to go spend it all on a night out or on Topshop, and then being like, oh no money for rent now. That's often a second thought. So maybe I think maybe the system should be a bit different, where the rent does get paid automatically so that these people are in a better state. But obviously it's more admin, and people should be able to decide what money they want and how they should spend it. But
I think in some ways maybe it's good if they are given the responsibility, because otherwise everything would be done for people. And what you're saying is definitely right, but I think you can't have every generation thinking everything will be done for me if I do this.
Yeah, and we already had that enough already anyway. We're going to go to another break, and when we come back, we'll talk about moving on to the next day's headlines, Sunday headlines. I'm talking about the NHS crisis, a lot about actually on the NHS, and a bit about as well, I think, also on immigration. You are listening to The Fourth Estate on Radio Brunel.
Her blood is all blood too, I know, and I feel all of it too, you know.
Good afternoon, you are listening to The Fourth Estate on Radio Brunel, and I'm your main host, Jim Wong, and today I am joined by two lovely guests, Amita Joshi and Grace Witherden, and we've talked about a bit on Black Friday sales issue of police, should they be handling those sort of crowds, talk a bit about immigration and, Angela Merkel and her comments about David Cameron's immigration policies and his changes, as well as a bit about child benefits and tax benefits, about individuals spending about money on buying television for the children rather than spending it on saving it and going for job interviews. And now moving on to Sunday headlines from the Telegraph, the Sunday Telegraph. So the headline reads, £2 billion boost to avert NHS crisis. So they're following a boost to NHS funding to be announced by Councillor George Osborne in Wednesday's autumn statement. So the cash will support the day-to-day work of doctors and nurses struggling to cope under the increasing pressure from an aging population. So, it's always, NHS, it's always going to be a big story wherever that happens. And now with December coming up, with the autumn statement coming up, people were talking about how money should be going to here, going to there. But I, for one, think NHS is a great, great body.
NHS is something I will happily pay taxes for.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I've lived with a family in America who used to talk to me about how they don't actually have any kind of health insurance, and I used to always say to them, what happens if you're in a car crash tomorrow? And they used to say, well, that's really
tomorrow, we'll figure out that
and
tomorrow.
It was completely terrifying, and it just makes me feel so grateful for what we have here.
And it's even on a smaller scale. Obviously, I have 2 cats and we pay pet insurance. And I just always thought, it might be 60 quid a month that you would rather spend, because how often do the cats really get ill? But once our cat did get really sick and it had to go to the vet, and you would be amazed how much this bill was to see the vet and to get the injections and to have an operation. And at that point, I was thinking to myself, my dad was saying, if we didn't have this pet insurance, we would not be able to afford this. And, it just make you think, thank God we have this pet insurance, and know and to think that some people don't even have that, but for themselves, not even for their animals, but some people don't have that for themselves in another country.
Terrifying. Yeah, it's completely scary. I think it's a wonderful thing, and it's just a shame that Obama couldn't make it work in America. But
we'll see. I think it's going to take some time to work, but I think when it comes down to his election, I think in 2016, then they just go away. So just like that, people be like, oh no, I hate Obamacare. I hate Obama. I'm just going to cut it down, even though it was partially working a little bit. But yeah, I mean, insurance is such a huge issue because even I, like, when I go back home, I'm like, I don't know whether I got insurance or not. I don't know how much it's going to cost when I go to the hospital because I'm like, am I going to be paying out of my pocket just to go for a checkup? Well, here it's just like, it's all covered here.
A colleague that I work with from China, like I think it was about £90 for her there just to get some injections and a checkup. So she just said, you know, like, thank God we have this NHS here, because when she used to be a doctor in China, so you know she knows how much people were paying, and she just said, like, it's very expensive. People can't afford it. You know, you never think these things are going to be as much as they are, but they really are expensive. And when you think about we get it all for free, it really is madness.
It is crazy. I mean, on the other side of the scale, I think that Chancellor George Osborne's obviously giving his autumn statement on Wednesday, and I do think no matter what he says, somebody is going to be angry.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wonder where they're going to cut off certain sections of the government. I mean, which is going to be defunded, which is not going to be. Yeah. So, King's Fund, which is a think tank about health think tank, said that they're calling for a $2 billion cash boost, which was also echoed by NHS providers. And, you know, unless more money is found, Chris Ham, executive of King's Fund, he says a financial crisis is inevitable next year, and patients will bear the cost as waiting time rises and quality of care deteriorates. 60% of acute hospitals are already in deficit halfway through the year, and their entire NHS provider sector is heading for a financial crisis next year, unless the government does something in the autumn statement, which is a bit of like a sort of deathly statement. It's very scary to see what will happen on Wednesday.
It is tough. I honestly would not want his job.
And you know, so many
at all.
MPs say, you know, this money needs to come from somewhere. We raise the taxes, you complain, and you hate us, and you don't vote for us. But the NHS needs the money. Where else and you know, we cut it from another department. You all moan about that. Everyone's quick to moan about whatever area the tax is going to be cut or paying more tax, but they don't think about. But they'll also be the very same person that will moan the NHS needs more money and the NHS needs this, and money doesn't grow on trees, unfortunately, and it needs to come from somewhere.
When you look at or listen to individual cases where people are really getting terrible care and they feel it's deteriorating, it's completely heartbreaking. So in some ways, I'm glad that this is where the money is being put towards, because if they need that boost, then they need that boost. I mean, not everybody thinks it's a priority until it happens to somebody in their family or it happens to them. So I do think we need to put ourselves in the shoes of people who might be suffering from something really quite serious and will benefit from this a great deal. And we all will benefit from this a great deal. So we'll see what happens on Wednesday.
Interestingly, The Sun on Sunday mocked up Mr. Osborne as a surgeon in gown and mask, administering his $2 billion cure. It's not a easy job, okay, being Chancellor of the Treasury. So why mock him up? Because he has an entire economy behind.
I think it's one of those things where everyone, well, obviously not me personally, but so many people will think, I could do a better job. Well,
you try handling $2 trillion money. You try handling. Yeah.
So they criticise and they will criticise because they will think at the end of the day another government can do so much better. I am happy for him to have that job. I don't know where I would even start. Got a C at my GCSE maths, so I don't think it would really get very far if I was the in charge of the money. So he has my complete respect there.
I second that. I mean, I think it's such a tough job, and the idea that the bill gets passed on that very day, so there's no serious debate until after, it's quite scary. It's all down to one very young-looking man, considering the job, and it's terrifying.
So interestingly, I think it was the Sunday Times, he said that he'll take to the airwaves to argue that only a conservative-led government that builds a strong economy is capable of properly funding the NHS, which is the blueprint for the general election campaign where he and David Cameron hope to deliver victory next year. So, I mean, I can see sort of one way people think, it's just, a push to get into the vote, to get me, re-elected next year. But I'm also like, he has a point about NHS needs money. I mean, I don't know whether Labour can find that money somehow, because I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, that's what the mansion tax is there for.
Yeah.
You know, that is going to provide them some extra dosh for the
Go ho
NHS.
ho.
And then people are still upset about the mansion tax. I mean, I wonder what Mylene will think when she's paying this and she's upset. She needs the NHS.
So for those who don't
Yeah.
really know, Grace, how about you tell us a bit about the mansion tax?
The mansion tax will just basically be imposed on a small percentage. Well, I don't really know what the percentage is, but it certainly won't affect me. But yeah, it will be imposed on these big properties, and they will be obviously taxed on their properties. And they say, you know, they need more money for the NHS, and this will be a way of gaining this extra money. Of course, it's only going to upset the population where it affects, and because it doesn't obviously affect me, I don't even own a property. I can't really say much against it.
Mhm.
It's interesting how George Osborne is the person proposing giving the NHS a boost, and he's also the person that has said those paying mansion taxes will be clobbered by the Labour Party. So he's obviously made it very clear that he has magically found the solution to everybody's problems, and Labour hasn't. So it's hard to believe these things. We don't know who's telling the truth.
Imagine
and
if
who's
it
not.
was that simple as just looking at it and thinking, oh God, we're spending this much on this, and then fixing it. Like, imagine if it was that simple to gain some money from it. Like, just imagine
And
how simple that would be.
I do find it scary how his autumn statement is only an indication of what he intends to release on the budget day. So you're absolutely right, Jim, in saying, is he just saying this because they want the vote? We really don't know.
That is the thing now, because we are coming up to the May elections. You know, you have to take everything you hear now from politicians with a pinch of salt, because everything now is they're all thinking towards that point, and everything they say is going to have, obviously it always does have obviously a political intention, but everything they say now is really driving it through to May, and we are going to hear more stuff than we would have heard perhaps just after the elections before. And, you know, yeah, of course everyone's preparing for May, but you just have to, you know, it's good once you know the intentions behind it. Or of course they all want to look the best at the minute in the public because they want our votes, and we just have to be aware that obviously this is the direction we're being steered in. But it does mean a lot of stuff's getting done at the minute because of the May elections, so it's not all bad, I guess.
It is, and I think people are getting a bit more wise about what they remember was said and what hasn't been met. So through programmes like Question Time and other radio programmes, they're pointing out, okay, the Conservatives said and the Coalition said they're going to reduce the deficit by this much, but they haven't done that. They said they're going to address immigration in this way, and that hasn't been done. So I do think people will be a bit more savvy this time.
I do
remember.
At our students' union in Student Assembly, every month the officers have to submit a report, and on this report it's their manifesto aims, and on this report we introduced it last year, and it's the best thing because they have a percentage of how much they've achieved. So in this section it'll be red, amber or green, so it's so easy for someone looking at their reports before we pass them. Okay, their chart is all red. They've achieved or they've worked towards none of their manifesto aims this month, and it's so good. And how amazing would it be if David Cameron had to stand up with a report that was red, green, and amber, saying, "Yeah, I've done this. This is amber. Yeah, I've done this. This is green." Like it would just be hilarious.
A lot of reds.
We could
It would be
do that
amazing.
For a quarter, I think just have an entire table of just
If
drafts.
the Lib Dems had to be, yep, sorry, our report's
Sorry,
all red.
we didn't get rid
Yeah.
of student
Big red, big
fees.
red. It would just be amazing. If only governments worked as Brunel Students' Union did.
Yeah.
Is that your words of advice to them, Grace?
Yeah.
We've got one more story before we go to another break. This is The Observer with Tory Shires join call for more cash and powers for England's regions. So I believe this is about, sort of transferring of powers to different areas of the UK, hoping rather than focusing all in Whitehall. Yeah. So that's the issue. Mr. Osborne is facing calls to relinquish his grip on the state's purse strings. And the Observer says that the Conservatives, Lib Dem Labourers and Labour leaders of 119 English councils, including several Tory shires, are joining forces to demand an end to austerity and more money and power to run their own affairs. Interestingly, I did a piece on Nottingham East Midlands Today where they did a show on asking for more powers moving to local council and local councillors handling in their own region, which I think makes complete sense. I think why should everything happening in London? Why not spread the powers a bit further and more broad?
I think they do already. I think that local councils have more power than people realise. It's whether they actually get together in their meetings and not faff and actually address those problems. I mean, that's down to them. But I do think dividing the powers is a very American approach.
It is.
How they do it. So we would have to look closely at how it works there. Does it work there?
But then one of their states is probably as big as our country, you know. Like,
it's true.
California.
yeah.
I also think it's scary how ever since the Scotland devolution issue that everybody suddenly wants a piece of power, which is slightly unnerving. The way everybody's starting to think, actually, well, we should be in charge of this, and it's all just going out of control.
It has definitely escalated. I mean, people saw it, and Scotland, you know, the independence was on the tip of their thumbs, and then obviously they didn't get it. But it did bring up many questions to other people, and now they're thinking, well, if Scotland gets this, I want this too.
I do think the north-south divide is really interesting because a lot of people are saying that decisions made in London, people in Liverpool and Manchester,
there is definitely
a
certain, you know, consensus up north. It's very much
over
Londoners
there.
are like this, Londoners are like this. You know, up north we can't blame Game of Thrones for all of this, the north and south divide. So I don't know, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, but also, like, if they do want more powers and more cash, what powers do they want? You know, what money how much money do they need?
And of course, if they do get these powers, they need to be aware that if something goes tits up, they're going to be the ones held accountable. They can't go, oh, well, it's the government's fault, because the government will say, well, we gave you this power, but yet it's now our fault.
You can't do that.
It's a really good point, actually. I mean, how much are local councillors held to account? Not as much as they would be if they were in charge of it all.
It's very easy for them to blame the other party, the party in charge, or the council can easily say, well, they took away this aspect of our funding, they did this. Don't shoot the messenger. And it's like, well, you are representatives of your party. You are we have voted you to represent our constituency, and sometimes you need to be held account for your own actions. But
there were some interesting points raised in this letter. Things like them saying that they want to end the financial cuts imposed by the centre. They feel that this is a system at the moment that leaves local communities at the mercy of a central government, which has little or no understanding of each area's particular needs.
I do completely agree with that, because they don't want to go higher up. If they want something done, they know they can get it done quicker if they just have the power themselves. Completely agree with that, and I've seen that structure work in other situations. And they should obviously be in control of it. But if you want to be in control of it, I'm just saying that you need to take both aspects of it. You can't want the control, but then when it doesn't go your way, blame the person above, because it's a very thin line there.
It is, and I think if you give all of the powers to local authorities, how much can you say that they have a great understanding of the area's particular needs? Not everybody in charge on a local level knows what's going on locally. That's a very naive look at it.
I mean, next year we will very likely, have Boris as our MP. He's also going to be the mayor. He's still got, obviously, some time left. and John Randall obviously lives here. He's very much part of the local community. He's grown up here, and it's even small things like next year when Boris is here. How involved is he going to be? Is he going to live in London and come down here when needs be? Is he going to be focusing more on his mayor role? Obviously, it's not for us to say at all. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but it is things like this. How involved are these people going to be, and is he going to understand the community, or is he just going to be elsewhere?
I find it really interesting that one of the places which has signed this letter is Oxfordshire County Council, and they're covered by David Cameron's constituency of Witney.
Yeah.
So it's almost a straight slap in the face for him, for them to say, we don't think you understand our local community, and therefore this is what we want to do. So I do understand that being Prime Minister is obviously a tough job.
Just want to add a little thing on the issue of money as well, because they're asking for more cash. But I mean, they can't be saying, okay, we want the cash now, but then when sort of like they kind of mess it up, they can't ask for more cash from the government, because it's like, it's your money, you give them the money to do what you wanted to do with it. And I think then it should be that their job, if they run out of funds, they should raise their own funds and then fund their own project and their own services, because you can't just go, okay, I got £400, and then I finish all of them up, but I need more money now. You can't. You can't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Anyway, I'm going to cut to a short break. Before we come back, we're talking about a minister staging obscene comments debate for a bet. You are listening to Radio Brunel.
When love's a battle and life's a war, when I just can't go on fighting anymore, when I'm surrounded and they're closing in, when I feel the bullets graze against my skin, this world's a war zone, but I've got a shield. I won't surrender, 'cause your love feels like an army of angels, like an army of angels.
Good afternoon, you're listening to Focus State on Radio Brunel, and now moving on to other Sunday papers talking about the Mail. The headline is Minister Stage Obscene Comments Debate for a Bet. So this instance, the minister in question is actually Penny Mordaunt, who immediately used the word COCK 6 times during a Commons debate as part of a bet with the Royal Marines. The MP, a Royal Navy Reserve, is quoted saying she didn't deliver the speech purely to make the remarks. So apparently, in one of her speeches, she said 6 COCK, 5 lays or lays, in a speech on poetry. So, she said that she's, meant to entertain her Royal Marine friends who dared her. And it's just, stick to your job. I mean, really, talk about,
This reminds me of an episode of How I Met Your Mother, where Barney, I don't know why the microphone's going really funny. Barney makes bets to Robin about stuff she must say when she's reporting the news, and he gives her a word each night, and then they sit there and watch it. And I think that basically they were just watching this and thought, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. And that's what they've done. And I did read the story this morning, and it did make me laugh, because I thought it just shows that they're not all serious, they can take a joke. I just thought this was hilarious. I was good on her. But then on another serious side, of course, it's very irresponsible, and how dare she, and except. But I did think it was really funny.
I'm just so relieved that they have a sense of humour.
Yeah.
Because they're just seen as these machines
human,
in the House of Commons, and it's just. I read this, I thought he was completely
And you know
brilliant.
what, if she won that bet and got some money out of it, fair due to her. If you're going to stand up and make a speech in front of all these men, all these very intimidating MPs, and you're going to go ahead and say it, then fair enough.
I'd probably find her more relatable than the others, just based on this,
me
because I
too.
sort of think, okay, she's not quite so
I don't know
formal
why
and-
she admitted to it though, because if I'd done that and I got away with it, I probably would just keep the joke to myself and think, that was funny. I don't know if I'd go out in the press of it, particularly because last week, obviously, the Labour MP was dismissed because she submitted the tweet. She wrote the tweet with the flags from Rochester, and I think that it was a bit too close for comfort. With MPs being dismissed by their leaders because of doing these immature things, and I don't know if I would have come out of it and let people know about it. Obviously, it didn't cause any harm, but she is allowing herself to be open to criticism. So I don't know if I would have come out of it unless she just thought it was really funny and wanted everyone else to know. And fair enough. But I don't know. I just don't know why she told everyone. Like, she got away with it. Just take the money and run.
I think the Mail referred to her as publicity-seeking MP. So I'm not surprised on that front that she's confessed to the stunt, because if publicity is what she wants, then she will get. But interestingly, while she received an award last week at The Spectator for Parliamentarian of the Year, she actually uttered a few other words relating to male body
She's
parts.
just, she's getting away with it now. She has got his
She's on a roll.
Yeah.
She's
She
kind
really
of
is.
obsessed with that kind of genitalia.
To be honest, when we were recording this show the other week, me, Alex, and Ali had words we were going to slip in. So everyone plays this game. Mine was wasabi. Everyone,
the best guess in the world.
everyone does play this game. I guess even we played it on here. So it's just a bit of a joke, isn't it? No one was harmed.
I particularly love the bit where she actually received a formal reply from a fellow minister who believed that the subject was genuine. I just think it's great.
That's hilarious. I don't know whether you've seen things on Facebook or Twitter, but people are showing images of how full the House of Commons is, House of Lords is during debates. And the article, published, I don't know, by one of the papers, is saying it's all inaccurate because they're not really the same debates or whatever. And I think people should actually, before you judge anything happening in the Parliament, check it out, check your sources, check who's reporting this, because you can't believe everything on the internet because it wasn't true. It's just check.
For us, 100%.
Yeah.
I think as journalists, we are under obligation to check and double check and don't assume anything, especially with things
Definitely.
like Twitter, Facebook, social media. Everybody claims to know the truth, so you have to be particularly careful about this.
Especially because, if we reported something that wasn't true, we could probably be sued for it. So,
Or put in
gives,
jail.
yeah, so it really does
We're
give
not
us
going to
an
be sued,
added
Grace. We're great
element.
journalists. It's not going to happen to us.
Fingers crossed. Our last story on the front page headlines is The Independent, a Rigby murder where we told the whole truth. So The Independent on Sunday led an investigation into the murder of Fusilia Lee Rigby outside a London barracks by two Muslim extremists. They claim that MPs were not told the full details of a security service plan to recruit one of his killers before the attack in May 2013. A 190-page parliamentary report into the role of the services of intelligence officers was dramatically undermined as it emerged that MPs may have not been told the full details of how the MI6 tried to recruit one of Rigby killers as a double agent. These sort of revelations raise serious questions about the accountability of British secret services to Parliament at a time when they, with government support, are seeking greater powers to combat the threat from the Islamic terror groups.
Terrifying. I can't think of any other word for it. This reminds me of the story that I read last week, where out of, say, 50 people who are assessed as to how dangerous they are, only 12 of them are put under 24-hour surveillance. So it just shows how much we don't know about what's going on in security services, which is fair enough, but how much we don't know in terms of who is making these decisions, who is deciding who should be assessed and who shouldn't. It's a very sensitive issue, which apparently lies with
and of
few
course
people.
no one would want to be seen as stereotyping one type of person and saying, oh, I'm going to search you because perhaps you're Muslim. Like, it's very, very risky ground, and no one wants to be seen prejudicing anyone or any race or any religion. No one wants to be seen doing that. But at the same time, their job is to keep everyone safe.
As family member of Lee Rigby, it just must be awful to know that the killers were actually known to the services before this happened. And although you can't predict what people are going to do, you might be surveying somebody who knows what they're going to do, but it's frustrating to hear that they claimed an interest in him and he was attending radical Muslim extremist meetings, but then the interest in him just waned and they sort of left it.
I think what is more terrifying is that MPs weren't told, and MPs are meant to be part of the government, and if MI6 can't tell stuff properly to the government, who can they tell?
It is all
what
very
are they
secret, isn't it?
Yeah. So what are they keeping secret? Because it's like, the NSA or the US and everything like that, how the FBI was doing stuff back in the day. It's like you're meant to protect us. You're meant to protect, the UK from this kind of stuff. But if we don't feel safe from you guys yourself, why can we trust you and other stuff as well? It's horrible. So, Shami Chakrabarti, Director of Liberty, said, "Why are we not being told what is being done in our name? Why are there so many holes in the ISC report? And how can we have any trust in this process?" And yet again, government returns to Parliament, demanding another blank check. MPs must think again, which I think she's a very strong point, because you can't ask for more money and then not tell her what you're doing with the money. It's just you gotta be accountable for what you spend and what you do with in your job and in your organisation.
What they stand for is security, and the way I see it is that includes security from anybody,
And
including them.
Yeah, exactly.
Which sounds really sceptical and harsh, but it is about that. It's about knowing exactly what's going on so that we feel safe. And in this case, it didn't feel like that at all. And it's interesting how they're the first to hold other people to account. Companies like Google and Facebook have been under criticism, as we know. But this investigation, which is going on for a while by The Independent on Sunday, shows that they also have internal issues which are going on, and they need to be addressed immediately because our safety may well be being compromised.
But then in the same, I guess on the other side to that, how much do we need to know, and how much is going to unexcessively worry people? I don't know if this issue's been discussed, but earlier in the week, leaflets were being given out on some underground stations about what to do should a terrorist attack happen.
Yeah,
we're on a very high alert.
Weren't they like run?
It was
hide,
hide, tell someone. And I was just thinking, how many hypochondriacs there is just scaring that has been giving this leaflet,
definitely.
and is now looking aware on their whole journey. And
Theresa May's great plan.
What a horrible thing to be on the tube every morning for work and think that you're going to be killed. Like, what a horrible feeling. And I think in that sense, the public did not need to know that. And they needed to, obviously, yes, we need to know on a high terrorism alert, but I do not feel they needed to be given a leaflet telling them to run and hide should something happen. In some ways, I don't feel that. I don't want to unnecessarily panic people.
Also, I don't know about you, but have you ever tried to run or hide on
in
a
the
tube?
underground?
There's not actually that many places where you can run and hide when you're
and
on
tell
a train.
someone. Well, no one's getting signal on this underground, so it was a very flawed leaflet.
Exactly. That's going to be our closing headline for this week's show on 4th Estate. When we come back, we're having a special little segment on our show. We talk about something happening in China and Asia with a new guest with us today. Today you've heard from wonderful guests Amita Joshi and Grace Witherden about Saturday and Sunday's headlines. And you've heard from me, Jim Wong, and you'll hear back from me when I come back to tell our little segment. Until then, here's our next song.
Going to the river to pray, 'cause I need something that can wash out the pain. And I'm sleeping all these demons away, but your ghost, the ghost of you, it keeps me awake. My friends had you figured out, yeah, there's so what's inside of you. You tried hiding another you, but your evil was coming through. These guys sitting on the wall, they watch every move I make. Bright light living in the shade. need something that can wash out the pain. And I know I'm sleeping all these demons away, but your ghost, the ghost of you, it keeps me away. I keep going to the river to pray, 'cause I need something that can wash out the pain. And I know I'm sleeping all these demons away, but your ghost, the ghost of you, it keeps me away. Each time that I think you go, I turn around and you're creeping in, and I let you under my skin, 'cause I love living in the sin. Oh, you never told me true love was gonna hurt, true pain I don't deserve, truth is that I never learned. I keep going to the river to pray, 'cause I need something that can wash out the pain. And I know I'm sleeping all these demons away, but your ghost, the ghost of you, it keeps me away. I keep going to the river to pray, 'cause I need something that can wash out the pain. And I know I'm sleeping all these demons away, but your ghost, the ghost of you, it keeps me away. Give up the ghost, give up the ghost, give up the ghost, stop the haunting, baby. Give up the ghost, give up the ghost, give up the ghost, no more haunting, baby. I keep going to the river. I keep going to the river to pray, 'cause I need something that can wash out the pain. And I know I'm sleeping all these demons away, but your ghost, the ghost of you, it gets me away. I keep going to the river to pray, 'cause I need something that can wash out the pain. And I know I'm sleeping all these demons away, but your ghost, the ghost of you, it gets me away.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the last segment of The Fourth Estate on Radio Brunel, the Brunel University student-run station. And the last segment is talking about Asian and Chinese-Pacific news that happened across the week. So today I am joined by Pan Yue, a MAIJ and MA International Journalism student from China. So, Pan, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hello. My name is Pan Yue. I'm an international journalist student.
That's good, great. So, which part of China are you from, actually?
Southeast.
Southeast China. Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. So, I mean, great to have you on the show today. So, what's happening in your country, and what's happening in the continent of Asia?
Like there is a really famous song. The song called Xi Dada loves Peng Mama. That means
That means nothing to me. So, what does it actually mean?
it means President Xi loves his wife.
And President Xi, the current president of China, is that correct?
Sorry.
Is who is President Xi?
President Xi Jinping.
He's the current
Yeah,
president of
yeah,
China.
yeah.
Okay, so it means he loves his wife. Okay,
Yep.
and so why is that in the news?
I think this song becomes really popular because I think President Xi shows how he loves his wife during APEC committee.
Okay.
And there are many really, really popular photos, like President Xi is wearing the same clothes with his wife, and he was always telling to mind the gap and holding her hands.
It's quite sweet, I think.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite nice.
But this is really different because we're not in the past we're not able to see how is the president's life. We're not able to see how the leader's wife are doing. But this situation changed. Like now we are able to see the leader's wife, and So yes, like I think it's like China is going to show the leaders as a round person, not like really serious leaders.
That's good. I think making it a bit more human, right? A bit more
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like you and I think, which is quite nice. But so far, how have people sort of how how have people sort of taken to this sort of stuff? Are they enjoying the song, or what's happening with the audiences and the people listening in?
I think most of people are really really enjoying this song because it's warm, it's sweet,
Okay.
and
Do you know any of the words? Can you sing it for me now?
sorry.
Can you sing the word for me? Can you sing the song for me? Do you know any of the lyrics?
I know the lyrics, but I don't want to sing.
No worries.
Sorry.
Okay, but yeah, I mean that's good.
Yeah.
It is nice. I think it's like sort of a sign of China's progression. I think China's changing a bit. I think you think so?
Yes, but there are also someone really worried about the situation. They
Yeah.
regard it as a propaganda. The-
Yeah, always the double-ended sword. Yeah, I mean, but I don't know. It's a bit. If it is propaganda, it's sort of good propaganda. I think it's quite nice. I hope. I mean, you never know if President Xi isn't sort of he is isn't continue as president of China. Hopefully, the next president is a bit more open. I think. Hopefully, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, but like someone really criticized this song. They're worried about that. I mean, do you know the Cultural Revolution? Like,
Yeah.
they're really afraid that the situation of Cultural Revolution would happen now because in that period of time, when it's Chairman Mao Zedong, it was the leader, and there were a lot of songs about Chairman Mao, and yes, so it's the same way
Ah.
to do the propaganda. So that's someone really criticized the song, but I think this song is quite nice in some ways because we're used to know the leaders as a really serious people, but now we are able to see some different aspect of the person, so we're not like really afraid of them, or we're going to
That's good. No worries. I think so. It's quite nice. I mean, hopefully, bringing it sort of to a UK context. Hopefully, like David Cameron, you could do a song, David Cameron. Have your own song, David Cameron or Mr. Obama. You never know, and it's quite nice. What about anything else happening that really caught your eye in China?
it's a really really interesting story, but maybe not news. Like there was a student who is eating something in the classroom. So the teacher got so angry. In return, the teacher bought like 10 or 20 bags of food for the student, and she asked the student to finish all the food, then come back into the classroom.
Huh. It's an interesting story. It's a very weird way to sort of teach discipline to students, I think. Having to like, if you don't eat my customer, here's like 20 bags of food.
Yep.
Do you know the movie Matilda or the book Matilda? No.
No.
Anyway, it's like a scene I think that this the headmistress of the church of the school, Miss Trunchbull, she catches a little boy eating her cake for chocolate cake, and she's like, since you like it so much, here is like a massive cake, and now eat it all yourself. And it's like it's an interesting way of sort of disciplining students. I think that's an interesting, good story. I think it's quite funny and quite humorous to read about and to hear about. I think.
Yeah, because like it's really normal like for students to eating in the classroom, and normally the teachers got so angry, but they have nothing to do with the students. They just like shut them up, like, or don't eat anything. But normally the teachers can't really like ask the students to stop doing that. But the thing is, that teacher later apologized to the student. She said, "Okay, it's not a really proper behavior to do that, but yeah, it's interesting. And this story became really, really popular in China. Everyone's talking about that.
Interesting. China is an interesting threshold for news. Interesting. Anything else that really caught your eye today? No? No, in that case, that draws the end to our news segment about China and Asian-specific news. You just heard from Pan Yue. Pan Yue, say goodbye.
Bye.
And as a goodbye from me as well. Goodbye and see you on Friday.
Oh.